everybody, Young Grasshopper here. Welcome to the Cliffside Bunker in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And this is an episode of Battleboard Basics. This is where we take specific units and we battleboard them. And we go through the combat rounds, rolling dice, and we go through all the different mechanics, nuances, and rules involved. This is a great resource for new players because there's just so much of this going on in the game, battleboarding units and going through the combat rounds, rolling dice. So this whole series is going to be about different situations and whatnot. Recently I shot a big video about all the German turn 1 attacks. And we're going to take a look at one. We're going to take a look at 110. I talked a lot about the German turn 1 raid on 110. And let's go ahead and battleboard some units. We're going to try this with the scramble. So I'm bringing in a strategic bomber. This is the attacker column. This is the defender column. At 4 or less, 3 or less, 2 or less, and at 1. And my battle board is right on the map here. So you're going to have something different that comes from your game boxes. But here we go nonetheless. I'm going to bring in a fighter. A tactical bomber. Now the tactical bomber usually attacks at 3, but with the combined arms rule with the fighter here, it's going to get boosted to at 4 or less. Let's bring in another fighter and another tactical bomber. The 2 fighters now will boost both of these tactical bombers at 4 or less. Now I'm only going to bring in 1 submarine this time, and of course the Bismarck, the battleship I'm bringing in. So we have attacking 1, 2, 3, 4 units at 4 or less, 2 units at 3 or less, and of course the submarine. Now these units must come in. They're the ones being attacked. I got a British battleship, a British cruiser, and a French cruiser. Now the decision of course is whether or not to scramble. Let's make this battle interesting, and we'll scramble. We'll bring in 2 fighters, 2 British fighters, and we'll bring in 1 French fighter. Now let's take a look at this. So defending, we have 2 at 3 and 4 at 4. Now this looks very close, right? Very, very close. So 2 at 3 here, 2 at 3, 4 at 4, 4 at 4. And the 1 extra unit is the extra sub. Now what makes this sub so powerful is that there's no defending destroyer. So it's going to get a surprise strike. You can see how bringing in a second sub would just overwhelm this situation. Might even cause the British player not to scramble if a second sub is here. It's iffy to scramble even in this situation, but the chances of the British scoring more hits to the German aircraft are higher without the second sub. Now, there's a lot going on here. I'm doing this Battleboard Basics series to help new players understand certain things, different things. Maybe you've been playing a certain way, and I'm going to bring up something that you might not be aware of. A lot of these battles can be very technical. So this is the kicker here, this submarine. Because the submarine's here and there's no attacking or defending destroyers, it changes the dynamic or the makeup of the whole battle. For example, this submarine, of course, can never hit aircraft. Whether there's a destroyer or not, submarine can never hit aircraft. Whether it's attacking or defending, never hits aircraft. And the aircraft may hit submarines, or the player with the submarine may choose the submarine as a casualty from a hit with an aircraft if there's a destroyer present. There's no destroyers present, so the fighters cannot hit the sub either. So this is going to matter when we're rolling our dice. We have to separate our rolls. Let's just start and get into it. We're going to learn by actually doing and seeing. We're going to roll. The attacker always rolls first, of course. And the submarine is going to roll its dice first, and it's going to be a surprise strike at these boats. So we're going to see if the submarine can hit surprise strike, and it misses. So no casualty with this. Now if the submarine did hit, it would have to be applied, of course, to one of these ships, never to the planes. And what would normally happen is you just go ahead and damage the battleship, because battleships require 2 hits to kill, all right, to sink. But it didn't hit. Let's move on. We're going to move on with the fighters, and then right away afterwards roll the at 4. So 2 at 3 for the fighters. 2 at 3. There's 2 hits from the German fighters, and we're going to get into the at 4. Here's 4 units at 4 or less. 1, 2, 3, 4. That was pretty good. That was very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total. 6 casualties total. I believe that's all of them. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. 1 will remain. All right. So there was 6 hits total. The defender must always move their casualties, whatever casualties they choose, across the line first before they roll. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to damage this. Now I just want to talk a little bit about choosing casualties, because there's quite a lot of strategy behind choosing casualties. For example, if we decide to leave a plane behind, or if it was a British plane, if we decide to leave a plane behind and it would be a British plane, we would not leave the French plane, okay? The British have the more chances of using that plane if it survives. And the reason why it would survive in this case is even after the Brits and the French roll, depending on how many hits they score, the German player may decide to retreat after the first combat round. And they would have an easier decision of retreating if the fighter was here. They would leave the battle more likely if the fighter was there. Now they may decide to just stay and wipe out that fighter because, but again, it matters how many are hit back. You don't know how many you're going to hit back before you choose the casualties. That's why you have to choose the casualties. Now, if you don't want him to retreat, if you want a chance to hit a plane or something else, you would leave the battleship, because it's highly more likely that the Germans would not retreat and leave a battleship for you. Okay, so let's leave the battleship and see how it goes. Obviously, you want to roll really well, get into some of these aircraft, and we've got this left behind. But we have to be careful when we roll our defense because of this submarine. Okay, we're going to roll these 2 first, and then we're going to separate our rolls between the fighters and this boat. Okay, we're not going to roll 4 at 4 all at once. All right, we're going to roll 3 first to see if there's any hits with the planes, and then a 1 at 4 later to see if there's a hit with the battleship. All right, so obviously if the cruisers hit, it's a moot point, but here's 2 at 3 for the cruisers, and there is 1 hit. So the cruiser did hit, or one of the cruisers, but let's just go by the book and we will roll 3 fighters first. 3 fighters. Ooh, terrible roll. Only got 1. So 1 fighter there and 1 for the battleship, and that's a hit. So there was 2 hits with boats and 1 hit with aircraft. Now, because the boats hit, the Germans could, in fact, use this as a casualty. Okay, if these miss, if this miss, and all 3 of these hits, then the sub must stay. That's why we have to roll them separately. But we're going to use this as a casualty. There was only 3 hits, so we're going to lose the boats. There's been no aircraft loss. Okay, so all of this comes off. Not a very good roll for the defending units. But we do have the battleship left over. See, we don't have the luxury as the defender to see how our roll is going to go. All right. So typically the Germans are going to want to get rid of this. You have the opportunity here to get a German aircraft. Mind you, you've lost 3 fighters, and that's the way it goes when you decide to scramble. It's a very difficult decision, right? Could have went better, for example, if one of the fighters hit, then this peels off, or you take this off and this comes down, because remember, the fighter combines with the tactical, all right? But because these are here, these are going to get a 2 at 4 in the second round. But like I said, even if one more fighter hit, then that slides down there. Now obviously, chances of getting a hit are still pretty good. But with one plane gone, this has the ability now of rolling and getting another one. But that wasn't the case. The British rolled terrible. And we're going to move on to the second combat round. The Germans do not want that British battleship sitting there. And of course, we want the British battleship to miss, so we get out of this battle without losing any planes. And that would be very, very good for the Germans, to be able to take out the 3 boats, be able to take out 3 fighters from the Brits, and not lose a plane. Let's see how it goes. So we have to hit first, 2 at 3 for the fighters. There it is. So the battleship is gone. It's gonna sink, and we're gonna move that across the casualty line. It does get a shot back though. Now, if that were the case, knowing, and then just backing up a little bit. So knowing that that's there, the Germans could have left this and then peeled this off, put that there, and then that would have been a possible second round as well, giving this the opportunity to shoot this and not getting that shot back. So the surprise strike happens every combat round. So by seeing that the defender left this and knowing how it hit, even though the ships hit, allowing the Germans to take this as a casualty, because planes are ultimately more important, right? Something that the German player could have done, knowing that it wants to stay in turn 2, is keep this, take a plane, do this, and hope that this is a surprise strike and not having to lose any more aircraft. But that's gambling, but it could have happened. But right now, we're going to try and get out of this the old-fashioned way. We're going to try and pray that the battleship does not hit. Here we go, battleship, and it misses. So Germans did extremely well in this battle. All right. So this comes off, the Germans lost a battleship and 1 submarine, kept all their aircraft. And the British lost a lot. They lost a battleship, 2 cruisers, and 3 fighters. So now I've seen that go a lot better for the Brits. If the bad rolls were flipped, then maybe it is the Germans flying away with just this. It's possible, you know. So a battle like 110 can really affect the rest of the game going into round 2, round 3, based on just if there's like an extreme result from one side or the other. I would say that what happened just now is a bit of an extreme result, and the Brits are in trouble, and the Germans should probably look at Sea Lion, knowing that the scrambled fighters are gone and they didn't lose any planes. That battleship missed in the final round. So that's an episode of Battleboard Basics, guys. That was the German turn 1 raid on 110. We're going to do all kinds of different situations. Sometimes we'll get really good even dice between both sides. Sometimes we'll get a lopsided result, one side or the other. The point is to remember is that dice rolls are always different from game round to game round, from battle to battle, and doesn't really matter how scripted this game might seem or feel when talking turn 1 strategies, turn 2 strategies. The dice always make the game exciting and different once you get into turn 3, turn 4, obviously. Alright, cheers guys, thanks, and look out for another episode of Battle Board Basics where we battle board some units and we roll out the situation. That was only 2 complete rounds. Some of the battles that we look at in the future in this series are going to be large battles that could last 4, 5, even 6 combat rounds. Alright guys, cheers, take care. May all your rolls be ones. And until next time, see you.